Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Matt Whitford podcast. No sponsor today, so any businesses out there, please get in touch with me at the Matt Whitford podcast at gmail.com or on Instagram. Flip me a message and free of charge, I'll give your business a bit of a plug. Hey, really excited to be back in the North Brighton recording studio after a good maybe 3.5 weeks off. It's been pretty hectic. Obviously, the AFL season has started. Look, the Crows did knock off Collingwood round one, but have lost the last two. Also had an election that took place, and look, Live Golf and Gather Round have delivered us another 4 years of Big Peter Malinauskas in charge. Quick story: I once played footy against Peter Malinauskas. I once stood Peter Malinauskas, 2021. He was playing, Div 7 for Adelaide Uni, and I was coach the Adelaide Lutheran Footy Club. I had done a calf. I think that was number 14. There's been a few since. And I came back through the seas, and Pete came on for the last 10 minutes of each quarter, and like to say I kept him possessionless. He was the decoy, so he played his role, and look, Adelaide Uni got the win. But another 4 years with Pete in charge. Also, very, very excited, to chat about today's episode with you because Alex Newton, I did not know of Alex, and as you'll hear very shortly, put in contact by a mutual friend of ours, and his story is just absolutely incredible. Now, I know I've said that a few times, but when I came up with the idea of this podcast, it is people like Alex's story that are just the reason why I'm doing this. He has had to overcome so much in his life, and which you're about to hear, it's actually made him, I guess, do more with his life and not take a second for granted. You're going to love it. I'm going to absolutely love re-listening to this, but please enjoy episode 23 with Alex Newton. Alex Newton, welcome to Halfwit.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Alex, very excited to have you here, mate. And as we were just chatting a bit before off air, I only met you 5 minutes ago when you walked in my front door, and you were greeted by Lucy the guard dog, and she's given you the approval. So really looking forward to having a chat today because your story is probably the most incredible story I've ever heard. A mutual friend of ours, Nick Orchard, got us in touch with one another, and what he's explained to me, I just want to unpack it and go through it today, Alex. But I do always like to start with if you could just tell me about where you grew up and a bit about your family.
Yeah, man, no worries. I'm a country guy. I grew up in Kadina, up on the York Peninsula. So I'm the oldest of 5 kids. Mum and dad lived up there. Dad was a local cop there, and mum raised all the kids. And then I moved up to Adelaide to study paramedics when I was 18.
The eldest of 5.
Yeah, it was pretty busy. It was a noisy household, that's for sure. 1 bathroom, 1 lounge room,
1 toilet.
Lucky we had a big backyard. So.
Yep, boy just pee outside.
Absolutely. 4 boys, so poor little sister in the middle.
Oh, wow. So she's got 4 brothers.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a fair effort. But I'm assuming then you had a lot of responsibility on, being the eldest. And I'm assuming you went to Kadina area school or...
Yeah, Kadina area school, and then Kadina Memorial High School at the time.
Yep.
And yeah, I looked up the kids a little bit, took them to school and stuff, do what you can. But it was definitely mum and dad that raised them. I was definitely keen to be out and about, doing my own thing.
Yep. So, Alex, you finished year 12. I'm assuming you moved to the Big Smoke.
Yeah, I came to Adelaide to study paramedics.
And became a paramedic, and that's where you met Nick, our mutual friend. We're also talking a bit before off air. You met your now wife Cara when you were 15, so she was from Kadina as well.
Yeah, she's from Wallaroo, but she came to Kadina High School, so we met in year 8.
The Iron Triangle. That's
Copper Triangle.
Copper Triangle. The Irons, Wyler, Port Augusta, and Pirie. So a long way away. But you moved to Adelaide. You start studying paramedics, and I guess your life does change forever.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an interesting time. Like, I love paramedics, and it was a great time. But then I was pretty unlucky at one point to be diagnosed with cancer while I was there.
So how does that work, Alex? You wake up and you're not feeling well. You go to the doctor, routine blood test, or
I was playing heaps of basketball at the time, and just kind of every time I got posted up and got an elbow in the chest, just on my left nipple would be really sore if I got an armbar. And we weren't really sure what it was. So I went to a doctor and they referred me to a surgeon to get a biopsy. And that was kind of the start of it.
we'll talk more about basketball later because we're just talking about the Adelaide 36ers in their championship series against the Sydney Kings. So the biopsies come back and you've got cancer.
Yeah,
Where does it go from there?
I was, I think, 20 at the time. So I was in like second year or third year of paramedics. And had been with Cara for a few years, and it was a pretty challenging time. That one of my roommates, unfortunately, had a few demons and had passed away from suicide. And I was kind of just doing my thing as a 20-year-old, trying to grieve, figure things out. So I was at my wife's house, or my then girlfriend's house, her parents' house, and I was sleeping in and just, being a 20-year-old guy trying to deal with some stuff. I was screening my calls, never picking up my phone. And she got up and went to work, and I went back to sleep. And then I woke up at like 10:30, 11 o'clock, and my dad was at the end of the bed. And I was like, this is weird because like my parents and her parents are like, they know each other, but they're not on like visiting basis. And dad's like, oh, you've got to get up. Your oncologist is called. He wants us to drive straight back to Adelaide. And I was like, leave me alone. Like, I'm grieving. Like, I don't want to. And he's like, nah, like, this is important. We have to go. So, yeah, we drove straight to Adelaide, and he said the biopsy had come back as a rare and unusual cancer, and he wanted to operate on Monday. So that was kind of the moment that it all changed, I guess.
Wow. Is this when you had your pectoral removed, or?
Yeah, so the first one I had, it's called an adenoid cystic carcinoma, and it's actually a breast cancer. The cancer is normally a head and neck cancer, so it's quite rare. And then to get it in a breast is rare again. And then obviously, like a young male to have breast cancer is equally rare.
Yep.
So at that point, we took all the cancer out and the skin out. But yeah, kind of little did I know that's kind of the start of it. Unfortunately, it's comes back with a bit of a vengeance, and then it came back a few years later.
So this is 14 years ago that you've received the diagnosis, and you're 20-year-old. Like, just I can't imagine what that would have been like. I guess the stigma, like, of having cancer, let alone cancer in your breast, was it hard to tell people that you had cancer, that you had a form of breast cancer, or was it? And I can't imagine it would have been hard regardless of where the cancer was. But you're still studying at this time as well. Like, your life's just been thrown a massive curveball.
Yeah, it's been curveball. Like, I think one of the things I'm kind of fortunate and privileged of is that I was studying paramedics at the time, so I had a decent health understanding. And I didn't really have any anxiety about hospitals or anything. I was used to going in and out of hospitals, and it wasn't a big deal for me. So that side of things all made it really easy. Going and getting treatment, going and getting surgery, I didn't really have any anxiety about going to hospitals. And I guess I'm pretty lucky, like, young and fit and pretty boisterous. I didn't really mind telling people too much that I had breast cancer. It was unusual, but I never really copped too much flack or anything like that. Definitely, like, my basketball and stuff took a hit afterwards. I was definitely never the same after that. But for me, it wasn't too bad. I'm pretty fortunate. I can definitely see though, it's definitely a body altering thing. Like, having, like, even just a guy having his breast removed was definitely a thing for me. I was really used to having, like, being strong and fast and fit, and then all of a sudden, like, my body failing me was a strange moment. And that's not really having the body image stuff that a lot of females would have when they have their breast removed. So I can definitely see it would be really tough.
Yeah, and also, being a male, like that stereotype, what also happens, I guess, and this is not just for cancers, Alex, this is also when people get injured. It's all the follow up afterwards. Now, everyone thinks, yep, you've got cancer, that's terrible, or someone's been injured, they've hurt their knee playing footy, but it's all the follow up and then having things taken away that you can't do anymore. So, you pretty much stopped, I'm assuming, like, for a while, you stopped exercising, you stopped playing sport, and then your life has just changed. So, were you, during this time, you were still staying in Adelaide throughout the treatment, and then basically, did you continue studying, or how much did it change your life?
Yeah, I think, like, it definitely alters your life a lot. I got a tattoo over the top of my scars so that I can kind of hide my scars and fix that body image side of things. And then I rehab pretty intensively to kind of get back as close to possible as my baseline as I could. I still had my house in Adelaide and I was still studying. I never really stopped. I think one of the things that I really noticed was like one of the benefits of Australian healthcare as well is I got in quick and I got all my rehab done really well. But it definitely motivated me to keep going. I didn't want to waste years. I didn't want to defer things. I wanted to keep progressing and working through everything as quickly as I could. So I was always really motivated to keep working.
So you become a paramedic, start full-time work. You just mentioned before that the cancer did come back. How long was it sort of from that original removal of the pectoral, then it returned?
Yeah, graduated paramedics and worked as a paramedic kind of throughout South Australia, and everything was going really well. We got married, me and Cara, super stoked, went on some cool honeymoons, things like that. Life has gone really well. And then I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I'd always wanted to be a doctor. So I'd applied for medical school and sat the exam a few times and finally scored well enough to get in. And then I ended up getting into Flinders Medical School. And then in medical school, you have like a camp right at the start, like a couple of weeks in. It's called Med Camp. And it's a bit of a bonding experience for all the students. You go away to a camp down south and like live there for a week. And just as I was about to get on the bus, I got a call from my oncologist, and he said, "Hey, look, like your like routine scans have come back. You've got new cancer again. It's time it's invading into your pec major, like the big muscle of your chest. Um, don't go on the cam. Like we want to operate on Monday." So that was kind of, I guess, where it really changed. Like initially, I had a cancer that we resected, and I never really had too much of a scare. And now I've got like a metastatic cancer that's come back and has come back a lot worse. So that was definitely a moment of reflection.
When you just said metastatic,
Metastatic, yeah.
remember as we spoke, you're the doctor, I'm the teacher here. Can you just explain to myself and my listeners why that version was, I guess, I'll say worse than the one previously?
Yeah, like oncology is super complex, but in a simple term, I guess if you have cancer in one spot and you cut it out, often you can do pretty well. The problem is when the cancer starts spreading and coming back in different spots. And that's what had happened. You know, it moved from just the skin around my nipple to actually invading into the muscle of my chest wall.
Are you told at this time, are you given, like, I'm not trying to be too grim here, but are you sort of told that, given a timeline, or are they saying to you that, look, we need more surgery to hopefully get rid of this thing? Or
Yeah, like we were still kind of aiming for a curative intent at that point, like trying to take all the cancer out that we possibly could. And then we did some radiotherapy of my chest wall, basically just burnt as much of my skin as we could to try and decrease any risk of cancer coming back. I had a good chat with the oncologist about kind of timeframes and things like that, to what to expect. And he said there's obviously no data in like young, fit, healthy males with adenoid cystic carcinoma in the breast. You're very rare. It's very unusual. But if we do extrapolate some timelines out of other stuff, once metastasized, normally people live for about 5 years.
yeah.
The difference in like anyone that knows a bit about statistics is not everything is a normal distribution. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to die within 5 years, and there's actually quite a long tail on the end of it.
Someone has 10 years, someone has 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. You never know, right? So it's always interesting to know the averages, but I never really took it to heart. I didn't use it to kind of influence too many of my decisions.
Chemotherapy as well throughout this?
Unfortunately, it doesn't get chemotherapy to it. I got radiotherapy, but no chemotherapy. But yeah, so I didn't go on med camp, and I had my big reconstruction. So I went and spoke to my plastic surgeon and my surgical oncologist, and they said, yeah, we're going to take your pec major out, which, like I'm sure as you know, is kind of the big muscle in your chest that controls most of the power of your chest. And the plastic surgeon's like, we can do a reconstructive surgery, because I was like, yeah, I'd really like to be able to use my chest and my arm.
I'd like to have my chest back, yes.
It's a pretty useful skill. But he's like, yeah, but you're going to have to give up something. I was like, oh, okay. So he's like, I can spin around one of your abdominal muscles up on your chest wall, and you'll be able to use an ab as a chest muscle. And I was like, yeah, but then what happens to my ab? He's like, oh, you have like almost no core. I was like, oh, I kind of need my core as well. And I was like, what else can we do? And he's like, oh, we can disconnect one of your back muscles and reconnect that to your chest wall. And I was like, oh, what happens then? He's like, oh, you just won't be able to pull down from above your head on your left arm. And I was like, yeah, I don't really do that very often. All right, let's do that one. So I got a big lat dorsal reconstruction then. And then following that, we had 6 weeks of radiotherapy.
So no more chin-ups ever again?
I can still do a chin-up, thankfully, after many, many years of rehab. It's taken me a long time. It's one of my biggest physical achievements of being able to do a chin-up. But yeah, it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah, wow. And like, imagine getting that delivered to you, being like, oh, here are your options. You can take out an ab and have a 5-pack for the rest of your life, or I just can't imagine what that would, what's the other solution? What's the other solution? What else can we do? With the radiotherapy, Alex, so I'm intrigued. My mother had breast cancer, and she's nearly 11 years remission, which is unbelievable. Great work, Jill. Keep it up. And like I just watched Breaking Bad the other week. Like, is it when Walter White goes in there and just hooks up the other? Is that what it's like, or is it? Is there all these people sitting on recliner chairs just with drips in their arms, or?
Yeah, so like with radiotherapy, it's interesting because it gets delivered through it kind of looks like a CT scanner where it shoots a beam of radiotherapy through your chest.
Yep.
And I was there every day for 6 weeks. So I got pretty friendly with all the staff there and stuff. And when we planned out my radiotherapy, because the problem is they needed to do radiotherapy to my left side because that's where the cancer was. But if you shoot a radiotherapy beam through your chest, my heart is right underneath the left side. So they were like, oh, we can't shoot the radiotherapy beam straight through your chest because you'll get heart failure from it. We have to skim the radiotherapy beam across into your armpit. And I was like, yeah, sure, no worries. Except the radiotherapy is so strong that it welded all of my sweat glands and my hair follicles in my armpit shut. So my left arm doesn't sweat or get hair anymore. So it's always a funny thing in the change rooms. Like after a game or something, I'll spray my right arm like shh, and then my left arm doesn't sweat, so it doesn't really smell. So it's just like shh.
Being a big sweater myself, which I probably am right now, like I guess that's that's a little advantage to come out of it.
Yeah, it's not, and it's like super super aerodynamic, right? No hair.
So is that like when you're getting radiotherapy? Is this every day you're going in there, or is it like once a week?
Yeah, so it was every day for 6 weeks. This course. So basically
42 days straight.
42 days straight, yeah. So basically everyone else went to med camp and came back, and I got my surgery and got out of hospital basically at the same time they got back from med camp. So then I just went back to medical school. I just took heaps and heaps of painkillers and rocked up to medical school every day. And then I was pretty fortunate I had private insurance, so I would get my private radiotherapy in Flinders Hospital in the morning, and then in the afternoon I would just go to my classes. And that worked pretty well, really. Like it was on site, it was the same place, so it was pretty like low stress. I think kind of the biggest one is that like radiotherapy, because it's so strong, it burns your skin. So I used to have like a big massive burn all over my chest wall, a big like weeping chest wound that I used to have to like pack out with gauze so it didn't like break through my shirt. Because I couldn't go to the classes if my shirt was like saturated in like big wounds. So I just
it would have been
it out.
It made you quite self-conscious as well, like that you don't want to just be sitting there and having, your blood drip through your shirt and scare other people off.
It gave me like a very unique patient perspective though. Like it was nice being on, I definitely prefer to be on the side of the bed with my stethoscope around my neck than the one laying in there.
Yeah. So obviously doing, becoming a doctor, how many extra years was that at uni then after your paramedics degree?
I went back for 4 years. So the postgraduate course is 4 years.
The 4 years of paramedics?
3 years of paramedics internship, and then I went back for 4 years of medical school.
Bloody hell, just accruing the hex there.
Yeah, it feels like it.
My 4 years of teaching was enough, Alex. So I was like, get me out of there, get me into a school, and I haven't left. So you complete your become a doctor. Throughout this time, you've started skydiving. This was a bit of a passion of yours. How did you get into that?
Yeah, I started skydiving just after I qualified as a paramedic. Me and a good friend that I used to ride BMX with and skate with a bunch, we both kind of were working fly in, fly out jobs. And we just said, hey, like, it'd be so cool to hang out and do some skydiving and get our solo course. And we're at a pub, I think 10 beers deep at the time.
Good. When the best decisions get made.
Absolutely. And we kind of locked in. We're like, yeah, man, like next time we're both home on a swing together, like we should lock this in. And then Sunday morning, he sends me a message like, hey, when are you home next? I was like, I'm actually home for 2 weeks now. He's like, well, yeah, so am I. I was like, oh, fuck.
So just did it out north or?
Yeah, my home drop zone is SA skydiving at Langhorne Creek.
Yep.
So that's where I do my AF and like do all the teaching and stuff now. We jump at Lower Light North a little bit, but mostly I'm at SA skydiving at Langhorne Creek.
Yep. There's always that one out sort of near Dublin on the way to Port Wakefield. I always see that one there. I used to live in Strath and my house was pretty much backed onto like Langhorne Creek, and 5 minutes down the road you'd always see the choppers there. So so you've just said BMX as well, so extreme sports. So there's another big difference of ours. All right, mate, that stuff scares me up. I struggle getting along on a bloody stationary bike at the gym, let alone doing anything else extreme. So you start skydiving. We're going to go back and forth a little bit here, Alex, as well, but I am intrigued to see how you got into base jumping, because there's a lot of people listening, and I don't reckon there's too many base jumpers out there. But how does someone get into base jumping?
Yeah, base is fairly niche. So I guess for those at home that might not be following along, like skydiving, we obviously jump out of a plane and we jump with 2 parachutes and a computer in our backpack that will deploy a parachute if we don't, if we get knocked out or whatever, it'll deploy a parachute before we hit the ground. Whereas base jumping is a lot lower. So normally it's like a building, antenna, earth, some kind of object like a mountain, and it's a single parachute system. So skydiving overall is like relatively safe. It can definitely be done well. Base jumping, unfortunately, has a bit more risk associated with it. But wingsuit base jumping was something that I'd kind of idolized since I was a little kid, and I think is like the most incredible sport in the world. Was something I was always really, really interested in doing, and then kind of worked my way up there, started skydiving, and just kind of kept developing my skills until I got to the point where I was like skilled enough to be a base jumper.
Because I remember I always watched the clips on YouTube, or the most awesome video compilations, and there was always those Red Bull people with the suits on, what wingsuits, or
Yeah, wingsuit.
good, my terminologies, I'm on it, and it just always looked incredible. And it obviously wasn't AI because it was done in 2014, not 2026, whereas everything feels like it's AI at the moment. Anything you watch on Instagram or YouTube, you feel it is. So if we get this straight, Alex, you're a cancer survivor. You're going through remission after I guess your second, finding out it's returned. You're now a doctor. Are you working in Adelaide at this time, or didn't send you country like most doctors?
Nah, I was pretty fortunate. I stayed in Adelaide, did my internship at Flinders, and then just kept working at metro hospitals around here.
And how do you broach it with your wife, Cara? Hey, all this skydiving I'm doing, I want to start doing base jumping. How do you broach that with her?
I think from her perspective, she kind of knew it was always on the cards. She'd known that I'd idolized it and always wanted to do it. And there's kind of a core group of us that were all kind of working towards it slowly. So it was never really a surprise for her. I don't know how stoked she was about it, but it was never a surprise for her.
At this time, are you starting to feel like the cancer's gone, or are you deep down sort of going, it's going to come back at some stage, but what, until it's here, I'm just going to keep living my life?
Yeah, you definitely go through a whole roller coaster with it. You go through all the emotions. Like at the start, it's always the classic, denial, bargaining. It's not going to happen to me. Maybe this is wrong. But as you progress through it, you kind of start to accept it and live with it. You always get thrown the curveballs when you keep coming back and keep getting new metastasis and new things that need to be operated on, and new parts of your body that get cut out. But overall, you can't let it rule your life. It's not something that I let kind of enter my conscience every day. But that took me a long time to get that way. Like, you definitely don't get that way over a few months. Like, this is after years and years of many hospital visits and thinking about it all the time. And then, I think most people in general don't really think about their mortality. They don't think about dying. So it's quite an unusual thing for them. But I think being a doctor and, skydiving, base jumping, as well as having cancer, you end up thinking about your mortality a lot more than what a lot of other people would.
Yep. I cannot imagine what it would be like. Did it, in regards, and I spoke to you off air just before about mindset, your mindset obviously had to change, from that when you were 22, that original 20 years old, that original diagnosis. I'm assuming that every day you're waking up and trying to make the most of every day. Would that be a fair way of putting it? And I think most people should try and have that mentality, but I know I don't necessarily do that every day. But is your mindset changing from day to day or month to month, or can you try and explain, what's going through your head?
Yeah, like especially early on when I had cancer, I had a lot of time pressure. Like I in my own mind was worried about, not living till I was 80. So then really felt like a lot of pressure on me to kind of take every opportunity that I could and to explore and not waste any time. And that is a little bit counterintuitive, and it makes it hard on yourself because you get really down on yourself when you do feel like you've wasted time, when something didn't work, or you never quite got to a point you wanted to. So you kind of develop from there, and it ended up being that the thing that I was most afraid of didn't end up being dying, because you start thinking about it, you're like, well, everyone's dying, everyone's going to die at a certain point. These are things that I can't control. The thing that I can control is what I get to do every day. So that's the thing that I guess angers me the most, is when I see people that have all these opportunities but then kind of squander them. Someone that cancels on friends about having dinners and things like that. And I appreciate you got to look after yourself, but one of the deep down, the biggest things humans want is connections. So if people don't take those opportunities to get the connections when they've got them, I think it's a really sad thing. Like, you can do the thought experiment of, if I was to offer you $100 million today, that would make your life a lot better, I assume.
Yes.
But then, as if I was to say, all right, you can have $100 million, but actually you'll die tomorrow, then you'll intuitively be like, absolutely, I don't want that money. So like, you've kind of valued your life at $100 million, say. So it kind of shows how important your life is to you, that if I was to give you time pressure, maybe you'd be doing different things. And I think we should think about that in everyday life, that we should be enjoying ourselves, doing what we want to do, as if we were not going to be here forever. Don't waste your time.
Yeah, I think trying to make the most of every day is something that I know, Alex, I try and do. There's nothing worse when I'm crook and I'm sitting on the couch. It's a beautiful day. Like today's a beautiful day. I went for a walk with my dog. We're doing a podcast. I've achieved something before I go and mark my maths test later on tonight. But it's a great mentality to have, is that I need to try and make the most of every day. And something I try and talk to people about, Alex, is that I feel like everyone's tired. We're all tired. Like, everyone could do with more sleep. Everyone, you get knackered after a day at work. But, like I say to a lot of kids when they rock up to school, it's like, I'm tired this morning. I didn't want to get out of bed. I was very comfortable in my own bed. But once I'm here, it's good. Once I'm at school chatting with you guys, everything's all good. So you'd start to take your base jumping, I guess, a lot more seriously. Going overseas, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so base jumping is pretty hard to do in Australia. We're pretty flat, and the authorities aren't too stoked on it. So most of the time we're going to Europe to learn, and then also most of the complex stuff is in Europe anyway. So we end up going back and forth from Europe a lot.
Can you tell me about your first base jump?
Yeah. I was in a course called Learn to Base Jump. It's run by an Aussie guy and a British guy, who were some of the two like pioneers and absolute dominant base jumpers, and also incredible teachers. So we were over in a course in Croatia, which is a bridge. And they've done kind of like 2 days of training with us, getting a lot of stuff dialed. And we all came in with like really strong skydiving backgrounds, and all knew how to pack our parachutes and had all kind of those skills developed already. And then they put the final touches on to teach you how to jump off. So the first jump is a bridge in Croatia. It's about a 10-second rock drop or something. So I guess the rock drop for education purposes is essentially you throw a rock over the edge and count how long it takes to hit the ground.
Yep.
And then that tells you how long you've got to do something. So
10 seconds is a long time for that rock to drop, but I'm sure when you're in midair, that 10 seconds goes very, very quick.
Especially because you kind of need a couple seconds to generate a little bit of speed. So you end up having this really small window of really like 2 or 3 seconds that you want to be deploying your parachute in, which is not an easy thing to do.
So you jumped off the bridge. I'm assuming you're flying. Is that a fair way of saying it? Or diving? Or
falling. This one's definitely falling.
So you're just going pretty much straight down.
Yeah.
And then parachute deployed. You're obviously landing in the water.
This one has a kind of farm underneath it, under the bridge. So we deploy the parachute, open, grab your steering lines, turn the canopy around, fly into wind, and then land. So the whole process is only like 25 seconds or something.
So you're doing this on your own or with something? Yep.
Yeah, all by yourself. And
you've survived that, and you're like, let's go again.
Yeah, I think the biggest day we did 12 in one day off that bridge. So it's a pretty hardcore learning environment.
And so once you've survived all 12, obviously you're getting more confident. You've traveled quite a lot overseas, and you are currently making a documentary, which we'll hopefully be able to watch on YouTube and over the next few months when it's been produced. I imagine it takes quite a few months to plan some of these trips that you do. Can you sort of talk me through, how you decide on the location, who you're going with, like how does it all work? Yeah, I think like it always starts with your crew. Like your crew is super important when you're over in Europe. Like one, because you have to live with them, so you've got to be able to get along with them. But also you want people you can trust. You want people that make good decisions, and if shit gets a bit hairy and you kind of need to be rescued or evacuated, you want people that can make good decisions and be there with you. And you also want to be with people that don't have too much carnage.
it's not really nice to be around all that carnage in the base environment. So you do like jumping with people that are safe and skilled and conscientious. So it always kind of starts with a bit of a crew. And then there's a saying that you never want to be the most experienced person on a base exit. So it's always good to find people that are more experienced than you and can kind of guide you in. And that's definitely what you do in those early years. You go into places that are fairly accessible, where the hikes aren't too hard, they're not too remote, and the jumps are all pretty safe.
And you'll go, third or fourth, let the other people go first. And I just, there was one jump that Nick mentioned to me about that you did that, like, it was a whole day thing and the visibility was pretty average. Can you describe that one for me and where it was?
Yeah, it's always tricky. Like when people talk about like different base jumps, one of the base jumpers, David Lafargue, says, it's hard to pick your favorite base jump because if you feel like you're Willy Wonka in a candy factory, like how are you going to pick your favorite candy? Because there's just so many amazing experiences.
Like your parents. So which one's my favorite child?
Yeah, there's just so many to pick from, right?
Has to be your sister because she's put up with 4 brothers.
But no, I think like one of my favorite places to jump is the Dolomites in Italy. It's a pretty beautiful part of the world. It's like prehistoric. It's huge mountain cliffs and some really remote areas. And me and a good friend had scouted out a jump up there, and he jumped it before, and we had some GPS files on our watches and our phones of how to hike it. And then I had the data of the jump profile. So when I wingsuit base, I wear a GPS in my helmet that logs all my start trajectories and start profiles. And then I can lay that GPS data over the top of the profile of the jump. So you get a laser pointer and you can see what the profile of the jump is. And then I lay my GPX tracks over it. And the idea is to make sure that you've got some room for error, that if your start doesn't work quite as well as normal, you're not going to hit the ground. So that's the important point of it. So we've done all this data in this jump. And pretty much always in my jumps, I'll have a few rules that I try not to break. There's a lot of inertia that once you get up to the top of a mountain, you want to jump. Like you've spent hours hiking, you know that it's going to be hours to hike down. So there's a lot of inertia to jump. So it's nice to make the decisions early on. So I'd done all the lasering, I'd done the GPX. I knew how to get there. I was with a good crew, so I was ticking lots of boxes. And one of the other things I really like to have is good weather, because I know that once I get up, I'm going to want to jump preferably. So you try to hike in good weather. And I guess this is one of the ones that I did bend that rule a little bit. We looked at the data forecast for the weather and knew that we had a window from like 9 till 10 o'clock where it should be pretty nice and not much cloud visibility. But we knew that there was a storm coming after that. And we decided to go for the jump anyway. So we got up at like 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. and started the hike, and it was a 5-hour approach. And we were hiking pretty much in full cloud the whole time. Hoping.
And dark and cold, I'm assuming too.
It's dark, cold, yeah. We were at the end of our base season, so we were pretty fit. We were very current and pretty confident in our skills, so our climbing was good. We got through the Via Ferrata up there, which is like a technical part of climbing that normally you would clip on. We didn't bring stuff to clip on because we knew we could climb it. And also everything you carry up in base jump, you have to jump down. So everything's got a benefit and everything's got a risk. So we decided not to bring harnesses and not to clip on for the Via Ferrata, and we just free climbed it. And 5 hours in, we got to the exit point and we found where it was. And we look over the edge and it's just complete whiteout. Like I can't see the ground. I can't see anything. And there's no way I can wing through that, right? Like if I jump off in full whiteout, I don't know what's up, what's down. I'm just going to fly straight into a wall somewhere. So I really needed good weather. So we've got our watches on and we're like pinging Garmin to give us the weather forecast. And it says like there's rain coming in 20 minutes, there's rain coming in 15 minutes, there's rain coming in 10 minutes. And we've kind of like announced the fact that we're going to climb down. And we knew it was going to take us like probably 5 hours. It took us 5 hours to get up. It was going to take us probably double that to get down. And the big concern was it was going to rain and we're going to have to climb down this Via Ferrata without harnesses in the rain. Slippery, like it's vertical. And obviously climbing down is twice as hard as climbing up, especially when you've got a wingsuit on your back.
Yep.
So we're not stoked about the situation. And it was a little bit windy up there. So we kind of geared up and put our wingsuit on anyway to stay warm and just be ready just in case. And kind of as we got like a 5-minute call from the Garmin that the weather's coming in, that, we're almost fucked here. I look down and there's just like a bit of sun has hit the wall and that's just evaporated the cloud, and I can just see this little tunnel, and I'm just need to see this tunnel all the way out to the bottom and to the landing area. And I look at my friend like Anvici, I was like, hey, like we're on, like let's go. He's like, cool, see ya. So we both just turned the cameras on and off we went. And that was just like one of my favorite flights of my entire life. Like the actual terrain's incredible. You're flying past a few big mountains. You get to fly a gap through a big, a big gate that you get to fly through, skim the top of some trees, and then deploy over our car. And I was kind of spiraled down, landed right next to the car, and we were staying in a refuge up in the Dolomites that served beer. So I walked in and grabbed 2-liter beers, and I sat out and waited for Adam Vici to land, and we shared a beer and kind of looked up. And as we looked up, the gap that we'd just flown through had completely closed over. We couldn't see the top of the mountain anymore.
How long was it, Alex, from once you've taken off to once you've landed? Do you know how long it was?
It's pretty quick. It's like a minute 30, maybe 90 seconds.
What's going through your head when you're flying?
Like
other than, are you shooting yourself, or is the adrenaline taken over?
When I like my approach is that I'll know the jump like the back of my hand. So I'll have a flight line A, B, C, D, E, F basically. And I'll have watched other people do the jump. So Vici had done the jump before, so I watched his 360 cam the night before for probably like 2 or 3 hours. So I knew every rock, every corner, every marker, everything. And I do a lot of work and preparation on the ground, like my fitness. I make sure that I'm as fit as possible so that I can make good decisions when I get up there. Make sure my climbing's as good as possible, that I've got complete confidence in my gear, so that once I'm actually on the exit point, I just have complete faith. There's no like doubts in the back of my mind, like, oh, should I be here? Like, I'm totally gassed. I shouldn't be jumping right now. Like, I'm always ready to go. I know what I'm going to do. I know the start profile I need to fly. So once I'm zipped up on the exit, then it's a complete calm.
It sounds like, your preparation was just impeccable. And if we look back at one of the quotes, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. It seems like you put in hours, days into it. So that then, I'm assuming, once you're actually diving, you must be able to really, like, it is enjoyable, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Like, definitely like having that mindset to be able to execute when you're super stressed in that really high stress environment. And it's quite a complex set of skills to be able to jump off, because the wingsuit's connected from your hands to your feet. So there's a lot of a surface area there. So it's really sensitive. If you put your hand in the wrong direction, then you'll turn. You basically just have to think about turning, and that's enough to actually induce turns in there. So you don't want to be jumping off stiff and stressed and anxious. You want to be completely ready to go. And that's one of the most important things, I think, is being able to get yourself into a mindset where you can execute under that really high, intense pressure. So for me, that's like one of the biggest things, is getting my head into that space. And the way that I always do it is to make sure I prepare like so well. When I'm preparing, like when I'm at home running, I always think like, I'm horrible, I'm shit, like I'm not fit enough, I need to run harder. And that really like emphasizes and makes you finish your runs, really complete your training. And I get all of the prep work done so well that when I'm actually in the mountain, I'm ready to go, that I have no doubt in my mind that I'm fit enough. I have no doubt in my mind that I've got the skills to do this. So that way, when I zip in and put my toes over the edge of the mountain and look down, then I have complete faith in myself. I know that I can do it. And for me, that's like probably the most enjoyable moment.
Yep.
Like, because I'm ready to go. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know I can push off this mountain and just absolutely rip down this mountain as fast as I can. I know that I can fly right next to the ground. I know that I can split the gates as tight as possible, because I've got that confidence in myself that I prepared so well for it, that I'm ready to be there. And that's when you just get to unleash and just go as hard as you can.
Must be like going to a test for something, knowing that you know everything and you're going to ace the test. I don't know what that actually feeling would feel like, but I'm intrigued, Alex, about your technique. So obviously I've watched the videos, and some of our listeners may not have, but you're going full Superman technique, and even how do you turn? Like, is your shoulder dipping down, or how does that all work?
Yeah, I guess the physics behind it is it's not that different to flying a plane. Like, you're flying a wing, you're just flying your body instead of flying a plane wing. So the physics is the same, like stall points are the same, angle attack is all the same. The basic principle behind it is you want to carry as much energy and speed as possible, because that's what gives you range and power. People think that, maybe you should try and fly slowly so you've got more time to make decisions. But I mentally prepare for everything so that I don't need extra time to make decisions. I know what I'm going to do at different points. I try not to ever be surprised. When I come around a corner, I know what I'm about to do, so I can go as fast as possible. So that way it gives me lots of power to pop up away from the terrain if I need to, and pop up over a tree line if I see it there unexpectedly. So the most important thing is getting the wingsuit to start, because when you first jump off, you don't have an engine or anything. You're just falling from gravity. You need the wind to come in through the wingsuit to generate lift, and then that can fly you away from the cliff. So that's the first, like, most dangerous moment, is the exit, trying to get your wingsuit to start properly.
So you're not really getting a run up and diving off.
No, because your legs are connected, you can't run. It's like, essentially, like we say, it's like being in a straitjacket because you're completely restricted from all the wings. So it's a very, like, unnatural place for a human. So that's why we spend so long wingsuit skydiving, to get extra time in the suit, to get used to it, to get your eye in, because it's such an unusual thing to do.
So you pretty much just stand there and it's a big starfish jump out.
Yeah, we try to, we kind of go out as like a pencil, like really tight, because else if you get some crosswind, it can flip you over. So we go out as like a little pencil, probably until about 1.5 seconds in, when you start, gravity generates enough speed to go down that you can inflate the wings and punch it and fly away from the cliff.
This is unbelievable. I want to go watch some more videos right now, and obviously once on the Instagram page, I'll get your details. I'm assuming you've got an Instagram page.
Yeah.
And everyone can click on that, and you'll get about 500 extra likes. So followers on Instagram. Alex, I'm assuming is it illegal? I'm assuming, like, it's a lot of countries you can't do it.
Yeah, it's mostly frowned upon.
Frowned upon.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's illegal. It's frowned upon.
Because that would have another. You haven't been arrested, or police officers speak to you and say, please don't do that again? Or
I've been pretty fortunate that I've never had too many problems with the law. Like, as a base jumping, as a community, we're incredibly respectful. Like, we're all like mountain people. We enjoy being in the outdoors. We pick up after ourselves. We clean. Most of the time, people don't even know that we've even actually been there. Unless you hear a crack of a parachute and you look up, most people never even know that we're there. So we don't normally run into too many problems. Croatia and a few other places like that are a little bit different.
Yep.
We probably run into problems a little bit more there. I jumped in Greece. We had to sneak through some security guards and stuff there. But in general, we're super respectful. We're not doing it into like beaches with hundreds of people in the middle of the day. We're doing it at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. where there's no one around.
Have you had any little accidents, or have you been involved doing a jump where some people you jumped with made mistakes?
Yeah, there's always mistakes. The problem is like the degree of mistakes. I was in Croatia on the course when the police came to kind of get us. So, like, in Croatia, we jump off the bridge, and it's trespassing to be on the bridge. You're not allowed to be on the bridge. But there's nothing to say you can't be in free fall, and we're friends with the owner that owns the land underneath it. So we're allowed to land. We're just not meant to be on the bridge. And the police came to get us one day. And I remember being up on top of the bridge looking down, and I could see the police car coming down the road, and probably like 10 or 15 friends had already jumped. So I could see them on the ground just running like little ants in every direction as the police car came. It was like a Benny Hill comedy of errors. So, there's always a few close calls. I won't incriminate myself, statute of limitations, we won't say too much. But it's always something you have in the back of your mind. And it's one of the extra things you do think about, because it does increase your risk a little bit if you start stressing about stuff like that. And like that happened in a jump in Greece. We jumped onto Zakynthos beach, one of the remote islands there. It's actually had a landslide since, so it's really hard to jump now. But it's a place that people jump all the time. But they'd had some problems with some tourists going there and taking selfies and being too close to the edge, and they're worried they're going to fall off. So they're not actually worried about us base jumping, but they were worried about other tourists there. So they had some security guards stopping us. So we kind of had to just hike down and traverse across the wall to get to the exit point. And it adds an extra element, because you don't get to do all your pre-flight checks as well as you would normally and all those types of things. But you just balance the risk where you can, try and do other things safely, especially if there's something like that where, you're trying to get away somewhere. If you're going to get away quickly, then I definitely won't do a technical jump. I'll make my life as easy as possible if I am taking extra risks somewhere else.
Yeah. And we spoke about, I guess, the amount of risk management that, you put into these things. And then we were talking about what it's like being a kid these days, and also in day-to-day life. There's risks every time you get behind a car. There's risks every time I took my dog for a walk crossing the road before. even though the person said green and the traffic light was actually red, I don't know if that person driving is going to actually stop. But, you know, from what we've spoken about, Alex, in regards to minimizing risk and managing the risk, it seems like it's something you're passionate about as well, but you have to put in lots of time and effort to make sure all those risks are as minimal as possible.
Yeah, like managing a risk is definitely a skill, right? Like there's some outcomes of risk that you can't control. And yeah, that's the same as my cancer diagnosis. Like there's some stuff that I just can't control. There's nothing I can do about it. So there's no point in me stressing about those types of things. But there is controllables when you think about risks that you can influence. And I think that's the thing that people, should be really concentrating their energy on. Like you said, like you can cross the road, you might get hit by the car, but you can still do everything in your power to not get hit by the car. And you can take control of that moment and look and round and, ensure there's no car in the way. So that even if there's a drunk driver speeding around, you can be the one that controls it. I think because it's such a skill set, you need to practice that. I didn't get to the point of wingsuit base jumping in the Dolomites, and that was the first time I'd ever managed any risk. I've been practicing this as a skill for a long time coming before it. And I think that's one of the things that really helps me in medicine. Medicine, we spend the whole time managing risk for people, risk of anaphylaxis, risk of not giving them medication. Should I do this scan and expose someone to radiation, or, should I see if they can get by without the scan? The whole thing is about managing risk. And I think that's a really important thing. And I think it can be really hard for young kids these days who are getting wrapped up in cotton wool a little bit, because the first time they're actually having to manage risk is when they've got high consequence. Maybe it's they're 16 and they're trying to figure out, do I have 10 beers at this party and drive home? Like if they've never been exposed.
And decide to be a base jumper.
I mean, we can work them up to that, but they got to get through their teens first, and then I can work them on a base jump.
But the whole risk, like even, sometimes, I'll go in the ocean, I'll go up to my waist. Like I don't want to get eaten by a shark. Like I've got a mate that swims, from Brighton to Hove and back, twice a week. And I'm like, I don't want to go out that deep. I'm not worried about sharks. I'm just not going to go out past my waist and increase that risk. And, I'm not going to climb up a ladder on the roof because, I don't want to fall off the ladder, but I'm sure there's lots of things you can put in place. So I guess for all our listeners out there, it's just, you can't sometimes just do things. You need to actually think about them first. And I feel that with our generation, because everything comes easy, Alex, they get Wi-Fi. They all get a phone when they're in year 7 or 8. Like they don't worry about the risk. Oh, that won't happen to me. Like you see people walking around, and I do it myself. I'll wear my AirPods when I go for a walk. But also people when they drive, they're on their phones. Like they don't understand the risk of, there's like it impact others. And I think that's what I'm really worried about with the future, and people just, because sometimes if they do something wrong, it's death. And that's what's sad, that a lot of our people don't actually, students, I guess, understand that life's dangerous.
Yeah, life's dangerous. And I think especially because I see that consequence all the time. Like I see it at work, working as a doctor, I see it on base jumps when friends pass away from mistakes, and I see it myself with a cancer diagnosis. Is I'm very attuned to there's real consequences for these things. But for me, I'm still out there managing risk. That doesn't stop me from what I'm doing. It's just something we accept. Humans, unfortunately, bad stuff happens, guaranteed. No matter what's going to happen in the world, bad stuff will still happen. So accepting that and understanding that is really important. And that's kind of the first step, just realizing bad stuff does happen. And then it's working in between that to figure out, how do I stop that from happening to me? What things can I do to make myself safer? What skills can I develop? How do I make my decision making so that those things don't happen to me? Because they do happen. There are things that really do happen. So, try and enjoy yourself and teach yourself ways that you can get past that.
I think I'm talking about violence here for a second, but I've never been in a fight in my life. Never thrown a punch other than at a footy. I like punching a footy, being a defender. Can't mark up, just punch it. So, but, for some people, should I go and start a fight with this person? Well, no, could get king hit. Like someone could, when you raised that with me, Alex, when we had a chat a couple of weeks ago, it's something I've really taken to heart about risk management. And
but I think a king hit's a great example of it, right? Because if you shield children the whole life and never let them have a little tussle, then they kind of think they're invincible. And then all of a sudden they're 16 on Hindley Street or 18 on Hindley Street, and they think they can actually start fights with people where it's properly dangerous and people might have knives. And that's when they have a horrible consequence. And maybe that's because they didn't get to make enough risk judgment when they were a bit younger. maybe if they got in a couple of scraps and just in the schoolyard when they were out playing footy, they'd realize, oh, actually punches hurt. Maybe I should try and avoid these wherever I can.
Which is what happened to me in year 7. I tackled a guy and he got up and belted me, gave me the biggest black eye ever. And now I've learned not to annoy people because that's what can happen.
I think it's important though. Like you think, oh, that's a horrible thing that happened to you when you were a kid, but in hindsight, it's actually a really powerful learning environment. And I think that's probably the same with cancer. Like it's horrible that I got it, but the things that I learned from it are incredible, and the skills that I've developed as a result of it are really important. So when people get down about something horrible that's happened, I don't necessarily think it's always that bad. Like it's just, bad stuff happens, you got to accept it and then figure out how to move on from that and make yourself better.
And it sounds like, Alex, that, look, 14 years ago you were diagnosed with cancer and you've had a bloody tough time, but you've probably achieved more in the 14 years potentially than if you weren't diagnosed with cancer. Maybe it's just giving you that, that drive and that motivation. Well, my days might be numbered. Hey, you might live for another 30 years, 50 years. Who knows?
Who knows, right? But I was always pretty driven. Like my wife would attest to that. Like I've always been pretty hard to keep up with. And like I ran a half marathon when I was recovering and decided that like it says half, so I don't want to do it. So I just did a full marathon. So like I've always been pretty driven in that side of things. But like, yeah, man, like I don't feel bad about myself having cancer. Like I use it to best of my advantage to do as much stuff as I can. And it's taught me a lot.
How are you exactly like right now, Alex, with the diagnosis? Like how is everything tracking at the moment?
Yeah, I think like, it'll get me one day.
Yep.
There's only so many times you can kind of keep dodging it and sometimes you can keep coming back. I'm well past the 5 years of metastatic disease. So I've kind of got past that period, which is always nice. And that's kind of definitely when you have that growth, like, there's that term like post-traumatic growth of when horrible things happen to you and how you grow from it afterwards. And there's definitely like a long process in that. And I think that's a lot of time, like when I sat down with my wife talking about kids and things like that, we're like, is this the time that we do like think about having kids? I've kind of kept kicking along for a fair while and haven't had too many problems. And then you start kind of thinking about all those things of your future. And that's always a tricky thing to think about.
So you and Cara, your wife, were, I'm not going to say you're necessarily putting it off, but obviously that conversation would have happened about, well, look, I don't think there's any point in us having a child if they're not going to have a father, for most of their life, their childhood. But 2 years ago, little Mac is born.
Yeah, we got little Mackie. Yeah, man, like it's definitely hard. Like especially we kind of got interrupted by me continually being in hospital and coming in and out of hospital. That definitely slows things down. But yeah, we kind of had that discussion. And one of the things I looked in actually was like single mums accepting sperm donors and stuff, where they're intentionally growing up with kids without dads. And unfortunately, the divorce rates and stuff in this country is huge, and that also comes with like trauma to kids as well. So I think growing up without a father is not an unusual thing these days. And the most important thing with the kid is they've got strong male role models, and I'm super fortunate with other members of my family that are like really strong role models.
Your 15 uncles that you've got. So.
15 uncles, that definitely helps. I got a brother-in-law who's amazing, and so we're really fortunate that he's got a bunch of strong role models there. But like I said, like bad stuff happens, and me not being around will be horrible, and I don't like to think about it too much. But people will move on and they'll live, and I shouldn't slow other people down. And my wife's incredible. She's super strong, super resilient. We've had a few of these conversations, like one day you'll have to raise Mac, and maybe I won't be around. But she's such an incredible parent that she's gonna breeze by without too many problems.
But also, how lucky is he? He's been brought into this world because of you, and he'll probably take up base jumping. If he hasn't already. So
yeah, we'll see how it goes. I got a few pretty good friends that are keeping an eye on him, getting him ready.
Yeah, I'm sure you've just got him on the top of the bed and letting him jump off, and just getting him ready.
Yeah, he's super addicted to bikes, so we spend a lot of time outside. He's already climbing. He's already making good decisions. He'll walk around next to a cliff edge but won't jump off.
He's already managing his risks as well.
Managing his risks, yeah. He's getting those reps in of making those good decisions.
But being a father, I'm assuming it's been incredible.
Yeah, it's super fortunate. He's an absolute joy to be around. He's super busy, but he's super fun. So it's a beautiful thing. I was always the oldest of 4 kids, so I was used to having kids running around. Always thought I'd have a big family. Kind of questioned that at different points, but super stoked now that we've got little Mackie running around, and hopefully he can grow up in a loving, safe environment and get out there and enjoy everything and froth.
So where to now, Alex? Like, what's on the horizon for you? And I guess that's from not just from a husband and a father standpoint, and also from a base jumper, but in regards to your health as well. So where to from now?
Where do I start? Right? No, I'm super stoked, and I'm super privileged to be kicking around, still enjoying myself. I'm studying for some specialist exams at the moment that take up most of my time. So hopefully get over those specialist exams pretty soon. And then I'll kind of start looking into the future. I've got some pretty big goals and things that I still want to tick off. I think getting this doco done is going to be a huge priority for us. I really want to start a wingsuit demo team. So from some skydivers here, link them up and maybe do some flag flybys and jump into some events with some smoke and stuff. Trying to bring up that profile of the wingsuit a little bit, make it a bit more visible for people, because we're kind of out there jumping at lower light or SA skydiving, and no one's really seeing it. So it'd be really cool to get that into some events. I think the world's your oyster. Right? There's so many things. I'm really excited.
It's a great quote, that the world's your oyster. I got it told to me by a former A-grade footy coach, Tony Francis, used to play for Collingwood, won a premiership in 1990, and he said to me, Matty, the world's your oyster. I don't think I fully understood what it actually means. Have you?
I think for me, it's basically just like, you have so much opportunity. We're so fortunate being here in Australia, living in such a beautiful part of the world, that if you're just stoked about anything, you can go and make it your own. There's so many cool things you can do. Even if your favorite thing is just walking down the beach, you can go down and walk down the beach all the time and conquer all the beaches down here. They were just so privileged that there's so many cool things you can get out and do. That's my biggest thing, is just get out and do some stuff. If you love it, get out and do it.
Health-wise, mate, and I don't mean to use the word again, but your cancer. So you're still on medication for it at the moment, or where's that at right now?
Yeah, I ended up getting some really unfortunate pain associated with it. One of the operations, I had to have a big chunk of my lungs come out, and they pinched some nerves and stuff. I've got a lot of ongoing pain from that. So I'm still on some meds for that, trying to get that all sorted. But at the moment, doing a lot of routine scans. There's a few things popping up in my lungs that we don't know what they're going to end up being, so we keep a close eye on those. But super fortunate to be here in Australia with this amazing medical team. I've had so many recons now and so much lung taken out and so many reconstructions of my arms, but my actual function is really good.
Yep.
So I just get to be stoked and go run around, and I get my scans when I need to, and follow all the advice like a good patient. And kind of take it a day that it comes.
And being a doctor, you're also an anaesthetist.
Anaesthetist, yeah. That's right.
So you've segued from being a doctor towards that now?
Yeah, so I'm in specialty training to become an anaesthetist. So I'm sitting one of my biggest exams this year. So it's probably one of the hardest. Well, it is the hardest exam I'll ever do. So that's kind of my life at the moment, is studying for that. But yeah,
just sick of being a doctor, or just
I just anaesthetist is amazing profession. Getting people through surgeries, and I really love it because there's a lot of risk management in it. Helping people get through, especially those high risk and high consequence surgeries. And it's a way that I get to use a skill set to help as many people as I can to get them through surgery. So it's super fun, super enjoyable. It's a great way to problem solve, and I get to help people every day.
Yeah. You got to write a book, I reckon. Seriously, I think I've said that to a few guests that I've had on the podcast, but yeah, it's just something about it. It's inspiring. And when Nick mentioned it to me, I was like, I'm all in. And I'm not gonna lie, I've had a lot of people be like, "Oh, mate, you should get so and so on the podcast." I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll think about it. But I just think your outlook on life, Alex, is incredible. And I met you an hour and 20 minutes ago when I think you went to the wrong house next door, which usually does happen. That's just number 13, not number 1. But just your outlook on life, and I guess for you now, it's every day's a gift. It's you might be here for another 30 years.
Yeah, but so are you.
Yeah, I know.
Every day's a gift for you too, right? That's why I'm so stoked about everything. I think people really need to enjoy it and take everything they can.
Yeah, and I think you've inspired me to not do these math tests this afternoon and to go out and play a round of disc golf, which I took up because I stopped playing footy because I kept getting injured. But
well, you can do the maths test. Just do them as good as you possibly can.
Yeah, they can wait. They can wait. Alex, I've absolutely loved chatting to you, mate. I'm just trying to think if there's anything we've missed out on or anything else you want to have a bit of a yarn about before we wrap up.
Nah, nothing else I can really think of. Super stoked. Let's grab a beer.
Sounds good to me. Now, how does everyone follow you on Instagram? That's the question.
Yeah, Instagram's probably my biggest one that I post on. Like, I post a little bit, not super regularly, but I post a little bit. It's Newton U, so NEWTON_YEW. You kind of see me frothing out with my son, or I'm jumping off stuff.
Excellent, mate. I'll put a link down the bottom when I do my little Instagram post. But Alex Newton, you've lived an incredible life, mate, and you've still got a lot to go. But you're inspiring. I've loved having a chat with you. I also can't wait to re-listen to this. That's the best part of making my own podcast, when I get to re-listen to my episodes. Let's hope those 36ers got the job done today. And Alex, I've loved having you on Halfwit. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure, brother. See you soon.
Again, a massive thank you to Alex for being on today's episode of Halfwit. Please follow Alex on Instagram at Newton_you, which is NEWTON_YEW. I've just followed Alex then. He's also following me as well. So I've got another Instagram follower, You Beauty. You will spend 10, 15 minutes just going through all of his reels and just actually seeing what Alex does is incredible. So massive thank you to Alex again. Also, big thanks to Lucy for not disrupting the podcast yet again. Just stayed in her bed the whole time. And as a reward, Lucy, I will take you for a walk. Georgia and I just got a cut for the first time. Georgia was very hesitant about it, but now she's come back with a very impressive haircut. Actually getting her desexed next week, the first day of my school holidays. So I've got 5 days where I'll be stuck at home looking after a 4.5-year-old Groodle. We have decided that she is a Groodle. But yeah, so that's my first week of holidays done and dusted. Hey, thanks again for listening. Really excited for a couple of upcoming guests. Dominic Cassisi, former Port Power captain and 2004 Port Premiership player, will be coming on my podcast. We're just finding a day that works for Dom outside of his work and his media commitments with Triple M. Justin Pickering, a horse trainer that I used to play a fair bit of footy with back at the Brighton Bombers. He was going to be my next guest. He's obviously flat out training winners left, right and centre. So looking forward to having Justin on. And I'm still trying to get Wayne Wiedemann, the Weed, the Adelaide Crows cult figure of the early 90s. So we're playing a bit of phone tag at the moment. But yeah, fingers crossed I can lock the Weed in very soon. I'm off to play disc golf. I'm going to make the most of this Sunday afternoon. So as always, I'm Matt Whitford. Thanks for listening.